You know what you are looking at. A man and a woman standing in a comfortable room in 15th century Flanders. He raises his right hand in a gesture that reads like a vow. She holds her skirt gathered in front of her, and the silhouette it creates reads, to almost every viewer who has ever seen this image without prior knowledge, as a pregnancy. A small dog sits at their feet. A chandelier hangs above them. A convex mirror on the far wall reflects the scene. The painting is called the Arnolfini Portrait, and most people encountering it assume they are looking at a wedding, a wealthy couple commemorating their marriage with a commissioned portrait. She is not pregnant, and this is almost certainly not a wedding. The woman in this painting is wearing a style of dress fashionable in the 1430s, in which a large volume of fabric was gathered and held at the front of the body. It was not a maternity silhouette, it was a fashion silhouette. Women who were not pregnant wore this dress. Women who were definitely not pregnant were painted wearing it by other artists of the same era, in works where pregnancy is not at issue. The Arnolfini Portrait has been called a pregnancy portrait for centuries, the woman's condition noted in catalog entries, discussed by art historians, taken as evidence of the couple's marital life. She is not pregnant. The misreading was generated by a dress, and it lasted 600 years. The wedding is a more complicated question, but the evidence against it, once assembled, is at least as strong as the evidence for it. And if this is not a wedding portrait, then what it actually is may be one of the most remarkable objects in the history of Western art. A painting that was designed to function as a legal document, signed by a painter who was present as a witness rather than as an artist, capturing a moment that needed to be proven to have occurred. The inscription that changes everything. In the center of the back wall of the room, above the convex mirror, there is an inscription, in elaborate Gothic script, the kind of script used in official legal documents, not in the informal notations painters sometimes added to canvases. It reads, Johannes de Eyck fuit hic, 1434. Jan van Eyck was here, 1434. Jan van Eyck painted this for his patron Giovanni Arnolfini. Those were the conventions available to him. Other painters signed their work in those terms. Van Eyck himself signed other works differently. He signed this one as a witness. The legal script is not a stylistic flourish. In the context of 15th century Flemish legal practice, that phrasing, was here, is the formula of a witnessed event. It is the signature of someone who was present at something that happened, affirming by their presence that it occurred. Van Eyck was one of the most prestigious painters in Europe. In 1434, employed at the court of Philip the Good, Duke of Burgundy, and used by that court for diplomatic missions and sensitive tasks. He was a man of established credibility. His attestation that he was present at this scene would carry legal weight. If Van Eyck signed this painting as a witness rather than as an artist, then the painting is not primarily a portrait. It is primarily evidence. A record of a legal transaction, a contract, an oath, a betrothal, a transfer of property, something that required a credible witness and a permanent document. That happens also to be one of the greatest paintings of the 15th century. What a wedding portrait actually looks like. The assumption that this is a wedding portrait runs into a problem as soon as you compare it to paintings that actually are wedding portraits from the same era and tradition. Wedding portraits of the 15th century in the Flemish and Italian traditions had conventions. They tended to be in profile, not three-quarter face. They tended to be paired, separate panels, each depicting one spouse, hung together. When couples were depicted together in a single panel celebrating a marriage, the ceremony itself was typically indicated by a priest, by witnesses, by the specific gestures of the marriage rite, or by explicit visual symbols tied to the sacrament. The Arnolfini portrait has none of these. There is no priest. The room contains a bed, domestic objects, and two people, one of whom is raising his hand in a gesture that has been read as a vow but could equally be a greeting, an oath-taking of a different kind, or simply a raised hand. The composition is unusual. The couple stand toward the back of the room, not at its center, and they face the viewer, or rather, they face the two figures visible in the mirror behind them. The figures in the mirror are not the couple themselves, reflected back at us. They are two additional figures standing in the doorway of the room, people who were in this room when Van Eyck was in this room, who are now permanently recorded in this painting as having been present. Witnesses. The inscription names one of them as Van Eyck. The other has never been definitively identified. The fashion that fooled everyone. Return to the dress. The woman's dress is green, with a long train, and she holds the front of it gathered up in both hands, creating that characteristic rounded silhouette at the front of the body. Art historians and casual viewers alike have read this as a pregnant belly since the painting entered the historical record. Numerous scholarly articles were written on the subject of what the pregnancy tells us about the couple's life and the painting's meaning. In the late 20th century, costume historians began examining the claim against the evidence of other surviving paintings and manuscripts depicting women's fashion. In the 1430s, what they found is that this silhouette was a fashionable style across the period. Women gathered their skirts this way as a matter of dress. Illuminated manuscripts show women in domestic and court settings wearing their fabric in exactly this configuration, with no suggestion of pregnancy. The Flemish style of the era produced this shape in non-pregnant women as a matter of course. The misreading did not occur because the dress is ambiguous. It occurred because viewers brought an assumption: woman, domestic setting, marriage context, and the dress accommodated it. Nobody checked the fashion record for 6 centuries because the pregnancy was already a settled fact before anyone thought to question it. This is worth noting not only as a correction to a specific error, but as an example of what assumptions do to images. The woman in this painting has had her body read incorrectly by viewers for 600 years. The actual woman, whoever she was, whatever her condition, has been replaced in the historical record by a misreading of her dress. Who she was, the man has been identified with reasonable confidence as Giovanni di Niccolao di Arnolfini, a wealthy Italian merchant from Lucca, who had established himself in the Flemish trading networks of Bruges. He was a man of considerable prosperity and connections, exactly the kind of person who would commission a work from Jan van Eyck. The woman is less certain. She has been identified at various points as Giovanni's wife Costanza Trenta, as a later wife Jean de Senam, and as a figure whose identity remains unresolved. The identification with Costanza Trenta raises its own striking possibility. Costanza died in 1433, the year before the painting was made. If this is Costanza, then the painting was made after her death, a memorial document, showing her as if present in the room she no longer occupied, witnessing an event she could not physically attend. Under this reading, the painting is not a record of a living couple. It is an attempt to include a dead woman in a legal transaction by depicting her as present, with the gravity and permanence of a great painter's witness. Whether this reading is correct cannot be confirmed, but the date, the death, and the legal character of the inscription keep it plausible, and it changes the emotional register of the image entirely. The raised hand, the clasped hands, the witness signature, the candle burning in daylight above them, from a celebration into something more complicated and more quiet. What everything else means. Every object in this room was chosen, and none of them are chosen carelessly. The small dog at their feet is a symbol of fidelity that appears in numerous marriage and betrothal paintings of the era. Its presence supports some kind of committed or contractual arrangement between the figures, even if that arrangement is not a wedding ceremony. The single candle burning in the chandelier directly above the couple has divided interpreters for generations. One candle lit in daylight in a chandelier with multiple branches is a pointed choice. Some have read it as a votive candle for the dead, consistent with the memorial theory, while others interpret it as a symbol of the all-seeing eye of God, present in every witnessed oath. The chandelier itself is elaborate and expensive, a status symbol as much as a light source, and its single lit candle, whatever its specific symbolic charge, was not an accident. The shoes on the floor, one pair removed and placed at the edge of the painting, echo the biblical instruction to remove one's shoes on holy ground. The space is being consecrated for whatever is happening in it. Something is being marked as sacred, as separate from ordinary life. The oranges on the windowsill, sometimes described as oranges and sometimes as peaches or other fruit depending on the analysis, have been read as symbols of prosperity, fertility, paradise, and in some memorial contexts of the soul's passage. They are not there to fill space. The mirror. Look again at the mirror. It is convex, and it reflects the entire room in miniature. The couple from behind, the window, the space around them, and in the doorway, the 2 small figures who are the witnesses. The mirror frame is decorated with 10 small roundels containing scenes from the Passion of Christ, a devotional object in a domestic space, which is entirely typical of prosperous Flemish households of the period, and which here frames the reflection of the witnessed event inside a sequence of sacred images. Everything in this room is working. Nothing is simply there. What the painting is, the Arnolfini Portrait has been in the collection of the National Gallery in London since 1842. and it has been one of the most visited and most discussed works in the building ever since. It is also, by the admission of the scholars who have spent the most time with it, one of the least resolved. The wedding question has not been settled. The identity of the woman has not been settled. The identity of the second witness figure in the mirror has not been settled. The specific nature of the legal or personal transaction being recorded has not been settled. What has been settled in recent decades is the pregnancy. She is not pregnant. That much is no longer in serious dispute. And I think the settlement of that question is itself the most useful thing you can take from this painting. Not because the pregnancy was the most interesting element, but because its correction teaches you something about what the painting has been doing for 600 years. It has been seen, it has been studied, it has been held in some of the most prestigious collections in Europe. And for all of that attention, and all of that scholarship, the most fundamental visual fact about the woman in its center was wrong. An assumption about what a woman in a domestic setting must be was more durable than 600 years of looking. Once you understand that the pregnancy was a projection, that viewers brought it to the image rather than finding it there, every other assumption you arrived with becomes worth questioning. The wedding, the joy, the celebration, the settled domestic life. All of it may be there. All of it may be a reading that the image accommodates without requiring. What is actually there is a man and a woman in a room, holding hands. A painter who was present signing his name in legal script to say that he was there. Two small figures reflected in a mirror, watching. A single candle burning above them in broad daylight. And no one, still, entirely sure what it was for. I'd love to know what you think. When you look at this painting now, knowing she is not pregnant, knowing the inscription is a witness signature, knowing the couple in the mirror may include Van Eyck himself, what do you think you are looking at? A betrothal? A memorial? A legal document? Or something else entirely? Let me know in the comments. I'd genuinely love to hear your reading.